Good evening. I'd like to call the Fairmont City Council work session to order. It is Tuesday, July 28th, and it is 5:01 p.m. The city clerk would do a roll call of members, please.
Mayor Bolliard.
Present.
Councilmember Rice. Councilmember Moran.
Here.
Councilmember Horton. Councilmember Wade.
Here.
Councilmember Weber.
Here.
Councilmember Soul.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Newsom.
Here.
I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Rice.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll move on in our agenda. Consideration of council or work session business. We have 3 topics before us this evening: land reuse agency, outside mini agency grants, the opioid ad hoc committee members. So I'll now turn it over to the city manager, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our first presentation, which will probably end up being the longest, but the land reuse agency, the draft legislation that we wanted to present to you all, and I'm going to turn that over to Alicia Ford and Kevin Sansalone, who are part of that presentation. And as you all see, Kevin is gracing you in your work session this evening as part of this as well, in the draft legislation.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you I haven't met in person, I'm Alicia Ford. I am the senior staff assistant in Travis's office and the city manager's office, and they've asked me to work on this legislation with Kevin, and that has been absolutely fun. So the presentation tonight, I only have a few slides for you. I understand that there are some questions that I will answer to the best of my ability. But the land reuse agency, we just sort of started with, and I'm going to get this wrong, sorry. All right. Thank you. The Land Reuse Agency is created by West Virginia Code 31-18E. This is really Kevin's department, but we've been over it and over it. And it allows for a municipality or an entity lawfully created in a municipality to engage in activities related to vacant and abandoned and tax delinquent properties, to buy, sell, rent, kind of amass or, bring people through the process to get those properties, blighted properties, abandoned properties, back into productive use on the tax rolls in the city. So I have 2 slides. Purpose is the first one. The purpose of the Land Reuse Agency, and now they are operating in nearly 20 cities in West Virginia. A lot of cities have really jumped on this there to take advantage of this created opportunity. Then they're playing a growing role in community development. The nice thing about these agencies, if you read the legislation, is they have a very big toolbox that allows municipalities and other entities to work together to, again, go after those properties that are tax delinquent, to go after properties that have been abandoned, to assemble properties, and to look at properties that are nuisance properties within the city, and really give people at different levels of ability to invest the opportunity to do that in the city. Our land reuse agency, in its infancy or once it begins, if the council so decides to approve it, will focus on the dilapidated and vacant properties scattered throughout the city. And we have had the ad hoc committee that looked at the property disposition and assembling those properties. And I was talking about that today with both Scott and Tim. And that work of that committee and looking at those properties and identifying those areas that we need to develop, that's what laid the foundation for this. We've got that really good list and those really good priorities, and that's what calls us to really look at this kind of legislation so that we can be creative and energized and effective and have one avenue that is dedicated to returning those properties back to the tax rolls. And I was talking to another land reuse agency today in the state, and they were talking about some of the things that in dealing with code and code enforcement. And frankly, thanks to Scott, we are sort of a victim of our success. Our code enforcement guys are terrific. They get out there, they look at properties, they give us that information where we're looking at these properties that we can get back onto the tax rolls. And so that's going to work on what some of Scott has done to help them, get those properties on too. Again, the opportunities created by this make the LRA the best tool I think that's one of the questions. I mean, the city right now has a lot of properties it's mowing and looking after, and how do we get those deeded over to an agency that has more breadth and depth in terms of working with, and probably the thing I like about it for me, of people at every level of investment in a community, whether you have a larger developer who wants to assemble properties, or a community organization that wants to use a property, or a landowner that wants to buy property that's across the street or next door to expand the investment that they already have in the city. Let's see, you're not going to get to the next slide unless I do, are you? This organization would have a 5-member board, and that board that would be comprised of a council member, a municipal staff member, one member of the community who is active in a civic organization, and that's per state statute. I talked to some folks today who had people from the Historical Society, from the Main Street group, people that are interested in this kind of thing. One member of the community from a local business, and then one member of the community at large. And that's the 5-member board. And that board is meant to be small and nimble, because it will set the bylaws and the plan for the organization. And those bylaws and that plan will identify, I know that there were questions, Councilman Moran, about community engagement. And that board, in establishing its priorities and its approach, that's where they really will look at opportunities for community engagement. Who can we go out and talk to? How do we get this message out? How do we get information about how to engage with this opportunity in the people's hands? I talked to Moundsville today, and they actually have one meeting a year that's a walking meeting, and they go out to different wards in the city and they walk through and engage with the residents there. So I think that there's a good opportunity, since it is a value, to have community input for those bylaws and those plans to be written in such a way that we invite that and really, hear people and respond to what their dreams and needs are. And also, we're going in, we have the housing study that was just done. Aaron was on that. And then also we have the comprehensive planning process coming up, and that also gives us some opportunity to engage with the public if we have this tool in our toolbox. So again, I've sort of talked about the flexible routes of investment. One of the things that everybody points to is the mow to own. And that is, if you have a property next door to you, if you are willing to sign a contract that says, I'll mow this for a year, I will prove that I am the steward, we can deed that over to you for your sweat equity, as it were. And again, that gives people the opportunity to, if you bought a small home and the lot beside you is vacant, now you can double your investment. You can grow your footprint, your future, for your children, and then the family and investment, and keeping families here, letting those properties grow. There are some other really cool tools, but I'm sort of just learning about this. I'm super energized about it, so you could probably tell. Anyway, and finally, it creates opportunities for individual community investment and strengthening neighborhoods and our overall economic base. One of the things that is clear in the legislation, and I think that is important too, as we consider our land reuse agency, is every neighborhood has a personality and a feel, and you want to be able to look at that neighborhood or that ward and see what it needs. And by addressing its individual needs and spurring investment there based on what those needs are, then you can grow the overall economic base and support the overall economic base of the city. It's a one-size-fits-all tool, but it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all program. It gives us flexibility. So, and that's my whole presentation. And Kevin has any answers if you have questions.
Thank you. So I'll open it up for discussion or questions from council.
I have a few.
Rebecca was.
So would this automatically fall under the state sunshine law? Okay, so we don't need to have that in the ordinance. Would it be possible, I've seen some other sample ordinances that require in their founding ordinance that kind of resident input, to say we as council would like to require you to have input for residents at each session, a public hearing, something of that.
We can certainly add that. I mean, one of the things when we looked at the ordinances, they didn't really go much beyond saying there's a time for public input in each meeting. And I mean, I think I didn't really we didn't talk about it deeply because we want ours to be a little bit more robust than that, but we can certainly add in there there will be public input and public comment period if you would like to see that added.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. I also would love to see some more transparency under the like priority and land use plans, that they publicize, kind of what they're doing and saying like, hey, we are really prioritizing housing in this neighborhood, and in this neighborhood we're prioritizing these things, just so the community is kind of aware like the direction that we're going on things.
The state statute, the ones that you see listed in those are identified by statute, and in some of the statutes, but more in the bylaws, those are, once that committee gets together, they sort of rank those. And we modeled it on that state statute with those priorities. We did not rank them because we obviously haven't had meetings, but I think that involving the land use plan and getting a good plan in place for but again, this could be a really communicative tool, a really open and transparent tool that people, I think, can plug into easily. Because the focus seems narrow, it can do a lot, but you can sort of plug into it. So we could certainly, we'll go back to Kevin. I'll defer to Kevin on the statute to see if there's any way we can put more language to that respect in there. But certainly as the bylaws are established and the purpose and the plan, that will be a major consideration, identifying what those, and again, they're different in different communities. So.
Yeah, and more than just like micromanaging what they're doing, I just want that transparency and that communication from them to the community. And then my other one was just in reporting to council. If we can add some kind of, I feel like and this isn't land use specific, a lot of our boards and commissions, we launch them into the world and we send them to do their own things. And we as council don't always know like what's happening. And I think with all of them, it would be great. With this one, we have the opportunity because we're writing the ordinance to include that as,
I think that's a great idea. I think that, especially if you have something that's really great tool and you're really using it well, it would be exciting to report to council. And I do want to say that in the intent of this, and I don't know how long I'll be working on it, but I come from a planning background, and I'm very much been schooled in that the community belongs to the people. Like I can have an idea or I can have an education, but the community belongs to its residents. And at the end of the day, if the residents are probably right because they've lived there the longest and they know what they want and they know what they need. And the idea is to say, what do you want, community, and what do you need, and how can I best get you there? So I think that that's important too.
Councilor Moran, did you have, because you had mentioned, did you have communities that you had looked at? Because I know this is something that you and I have talked about a lot because of the strategic plan side when we included it in that. Is there are there particular communities you saw that you liked the language associated with that?
Not necessarily. Like I've looked at some others. I need to look at a couple more. I was kind of pulling from some sample policies that have been handed out at municipal leagues over the past couple of years.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was a specific or a couple of them, since I know, there's a fair amount of them. So, but if you have any of those too, by the way, I would say that to everybody up here too. Feel free to forward that information. You can forward that directly to Alicia, Ford at fairmontwv.gov. And feel free to forward those to her as well. So, figured I'd give a plug for that.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The Section 180.05 provides that annually there has to be an audit and a report filed with the West Virginia Housing Development Fund and also with the governing body of the City of Fairmont. So that would be a report to council. So there is embodied in the ordinance an annual report to council. Is it your suggestion that you want more than that, or is that sufficient to satisfy your reporting requirements to council?
I would like to see a little more than that. I think audits are hugely valuable, but they're numbers on a page. And sometimes hearing from the person, like a person on that committee, like specifically about the work that they have done and the work that they're hoping to do and what direction they're going in the future might be helpful.
Okay, it says an audit of the income and expenditures together with a report of its activities for the preceding year. So if you give me some direction, I can incorporate your suggestion into that as to how you want the information communicated to council.
Okay, I will look for that. I don't have it off the top of my head, like I don't have something
Okay.
already.
Then in 180.06, it talks about the priorities. We kind of left it open-ended so that, as Alicia said, in one particular circumstances, the hierarchy that's identified there, 1 through 4, can be rearranged, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in that same order for each area. So in some places, it might be appropriate to have public spaces as the priority with affordable housing, conservation areas, and then the commercial activities as the last. So if I understood you to say that you wanted the city to communicate those prior to implementing them, or this land reuse agency to communicate those in every instance. So if we did a public hearing on each time a neighborhood or the priorities were changed for that neighborhood, or that was conducted, would that be sufficient notification to the people and give them an opportunity to participate? So I can add that to that part about the not binding this land reuse agency to any specific hierarchy, but giving them the opportunity to still be flexible, but then once they develop something, to have a public hearing on it so that everybody knows what they've come up with.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good direction on that.
Rebecca, might I ask, in terms of the audit and reporting to council, were you thinking something more on the lines of qualitative and quantitative as far as what neighborhoods were positively affected, what were some of the reinvestment that happened there, and not just a numbers type thing? Is that?
Yes, that's kind of the direction I'm going with that. And I don't really have language put together to how to codify it. But I think there's a lot of value. You know, we get a giant audit every year and we all read through it and everything. But there are parts of our budget I don't understand until we're discussing it in the work session. And I think having someone from the LRA, whether it's in an email or coming before council once a year, to just say, hey, here's what we've been doing, here's how we're doing it, here's where we're looking to go, would be super helpful to me.
Maybe even just, 4 families expanded their, home value and things by purchasing adjacent properties and things like that. Is that more of the qualitative type?
I think that's extremely important. I mean, that's what makes people feel.
Yeah.
People feel good about investment when they see other people making investment. Numbers themselves are terrific because they demonstrate, overall growth over time. But in the beginning, if we can say, oh, we had one person do mow to own, then, hopefully 3 people in the community are going to saddle up to their property and say, how'd you do that? And then, it's almost like anything. If you hear a restaurant is great, there's no better advertisement than word of mouth. And I certainly think, too, that because one of the council folks will be on that committee, then there's certainly the opportunity for that councilman to request that the director of the land use reuse agency be present at any council meeting to give a report, especially during the establishment period. I think that might be.
Yeah, and depending on how, because I think in its early stages, and even looking at some of like the smaller cities that have land reuse agencies, there's like shared staffing. So I think like, to your point, but also the language being such, like it could be the board chair, it could be like a representative of the LRA, so not specifically saying that it has to be a director, it has to be, because it could certainly be that you've got a really active chair of that LRA that's like really engaged and would be able to give that info really freely. I think leaving that piece, but I get what you're saying.
You have one other thing. If I add in 180.08 under the meetings, if I add an item E and change E to F, and I put that the Open Government Proceedings Act under the code shall apply to their meetings, that should, it does anyway, because it's a board and commission of the city, and all boards and commissions of the city have to comply. But I'll specifically spell it out in there so that there's no issue.
The final question I have is, how are we funding and staffing it for success?
That is an answer I do not have for you yet. I think that is still something that we are working through. But that, and I think a lot of that is also going to be influenced by some conversations with folks that have been really successful. I know that I had shared with Leisha and Kevin. I mean, the experience of how I saw Nitro utilize. I mean, and the working relationship with them. I think there are a lot of agencies that have these that are really happy to share their successes, their failure, like where things went wrong for them. But I do not have a clear and defined answer for you on that, just being admittedly. But it's a big piece of it.
Yeah, having some staffing, I think, is going to be really important. This is not going to be able to be pulled off by a volunteer-based committee.
Yes, that for an LRA to be successful, there's got to be an element of staffing associated with it. Any of the groups cities we've talked to, and I know Alicia has talked to a couple of them, and even smaller ones, because again, us just getting started, I think even for them, staffing is a critical component. It's not just a volunteer board member, being the main person.
Could it possibly be the vacant building fee someday? Could that go in part with this and help fund this? If we would ever want to go down that route with that?
I'm looking at Kevin Sansalon.
I understand that Clarksburg currently has $6 million outstanding in vacant property registration fees and no mechanism by which to collect it. I don't know if Priscilla wants to be in that kind of boat or not. So I don't really know whether the vacant property registration fees do what everybody anticipates or contemplates that they're going to do. I think it's very difficult to collect a small amount of money from people who don't live in the community. The filing fees alone for purposes of those collections would far exceed the amounts that were being collected, even if you were able to collect the court costs associated with them. I just, in my estimation, given what I know in the past that we've had to fight with regarding fire fees and other municipal fees prior to the point where they were placed on the water bill and collected just as part of your ordinary municipal service fee, it was a daunting task. And it all sounds good on paper that Clarksburg has this outstanding $6 million balance, but when it comes down to it, it's going to be a very difficult task to try to collect small amounts of money from a great number of people that amount to $6 million. And I'm only saying what I heard. I don't know if it really is $6 million or not, but that was the number that I heard from the internet.
Oh, and
Looks good on paper,
and
but hard to attain.
And Scott, I think the other thing that you and I talked about is that, like, one of the communities, Rebecca had mentioned Municipal League. I think one of the communities that we've heard that's been successful in that regard was the city of Wheeling, and not so much because they feel like they're generating any money or they're bringing in anything. I think from their perspective, they've found a good framework in which that works. And I think you and I have talked about going up and visiting with their folks in Wheeling to see how are they feeling that they're having success with that type of thing. So
Have they collected large amounts of money?
no.
What do they do? I mean, what?
Well, I don't have
What's
that.
the have you had any conversation with them as to what the benefit of the fee is then?
No, that's the whole point of what I just brought up to Scott.
I thought you said that they had success with it.
They have talked about their success at Municipal League related conferences associated with what they've done. And I want to have follow-up discussions with them.
Okay, so yet they haven't collected the money.
No, I mean, I think that is the big issue that is with any municipal lien, as you and I both know, is the collection of those liens.
Well, I agree with that, and I recall the fire fee fiasco of old before, we've been on. It's been on the city services bill for quite a number of years. I don't know how long. Do you remember when they started that business? But I know we had a huge.
The prioritization of municipal liens has been an issue for a long time.
And it would be a very difficult task to attempt to collect that, because you don't have people who are receiving other municipal services generally, or they, the property wouldn't be in that condition, it wouldn't be vacant, they would be living here, they'd be living in it, and it would really be a daunting task. And now the fees, to file lawsuits against people are exorbitant, even in magistrate court. So I just think it's something that looks good on paper and sounds
Yeah,
good.
I also don't think it's something that's added into this ordinance. So I think that's the other side to this.
And we passed at one point a vacant property registration ordinance and program, and there is a space in there. It's a empty blank for a fee if it ever
Yeah.
became.
I think that's the route that will head down.
Something that was, viable.
It's a whole other rabbit hole that we can talk about. But I'm with you on that, Scott. And I'm just thinking, man, if they got 6 million in collections, but if they got 1 million, I don't know, we could do something with 1/6 of what we couldn't collect, especially if we could find some way to utilize technology to not put all the workload on staff in collecting some of that stuff. There's some new technologies out there maybe we could explore.
There's still a thing called due process.
Thank you. Bruce, did you have any remaining questions or, okay. Great discussion, everyone. Any other questions before we go on to the next work study subject?
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I did have one question. So
Yes, sir.
if I make the changes, then are you going to have another work session so you can review the changes? Or are we just going to put it on council's agenda, or how does that work? Because I don't want to get to the position where we're here and then the ordinance as it's presented and introduced is not in final form, and then there's an anticipation that it's going to be modified or altered, which will cause mass hysteria, and, make it go
Already-
backward.
I already have an answer for you, Counselor. There will be another work session because, to Council Moran's point, the conversation around the staffing component and how that lays out is going to be an essential, critical component of this too. And I'd like to. It's one thing to pass an ordinance and feel good that you pass that ordinance and you put it on paper. It's another thing to actually implement it, and that's where I want to make sure we've worked that through before we put it on City Council's agenda and have that implemented. So I would believe there will be an additional work session that may have other topics, but that this will be on as well as we look at the funding side of this.
Thank you. And if anybody else has anything that they want to be included in the ordinance other than what we've discussed here, if they will give that to Alicia, then I'll be glad to try to put it into the ordinance and have it in final form for the next work session, so then we can present it to council and have it passed.
All right, the next one, outside agency mini grants.
Good evening, I'm Erin Hager, Assistant Planner.
I'm Renee Graves, Grant Administrator.
We're here tonight to talk to you some more about the Team Fairmont mini grants. We've done some work on that, we're closer to getting that launched, so we're just gonna run through.
Mike. Okay.
Hey, David.
We're just gonna, we have another little presentation, we're just gonna run through that.
Yeah, David, you need
So I
more
think we can start with that.
audio over here.
Yeah.
All right, we'll start with the intent of the Team Fairmont mini grants.
Aaron.
To-
Talk directly into the mic.
Okay.
Just for anybody listening in, we're going to take a pause and install another microphone. Kevin is enjoying the fact that he knows how to use the microphone now.
back without rolling up your Can't take them anywhere.
Yeah, because I think that one will pick you guys up better.
Test.
Okay, so we'll
Oh,
just.
that's much better.
Okay, great. We'll start over. I'm Erin Hager, Assistant Planner.
And I'm Renee Graves, Grant Administrator.
So we're here tonight to talk to you about the Team Fairmont mini grants. We're getting ready to launch this program. So we just wanted to run through the program with you this evening. So the intent of the Team Fairmont mini grants is to empower citizens to plan and lead successful community projects and initiatives by providing educational and monetary resources. The Team Fairmont mini grants will offer no match grants up to $3,500 each, not to exceed $21,000 in total grant funding.
The Team Fairmont mini grant projects help to fill a need in the community and strengthen community pride and involvement in the community. And I think most of you were here when we talked about them before, but basically when we had the Cultivate project with the hub, that was very successful in the community grants, and this kind of builds off of that but makes it more Fairmont centered.
So we're going to run through our proposed timeline for the project. So starting in August, we'll begin advertising the Team Fairmont mini grants. We'll do that by press release, Facebook posts, the City of Fairmont website, the Marion County Chamber of Commerce, and then we plan to attend the Main Street Fairmont Hometown Market in August.
And the Marion County Chamber of Commerce, what they're going to do is they're going to send out our flyer to all organizations that are members. And then Danny is going to put a link in there that will allow those businesses and organizations to send us an email if they're interested in being a partner agency. That way we can go ahead and find out which businesses and organizations are interested and do that on a wide scale.
So then in September, on September 2nd, we'll hold the facilitation workshop. This is a mandatory meeting for anyone who is interested in participating in a project. You don't have to have the project planned out. You don't even necessarily have to have an idea for a project. But if you're just interested in learning more about the program and potentially participating, we would like for people to attend that meeting. At that workshop, we'll cover the skills and resources for a successful project, including networking and team building, securing volunteers, which the Tigard Valley United Way has agreed to participate in that. Additional funding sources, community partners, which Renee touched on, and then learning how to apply for the grant. You want to add to that?
So basically, not everyone that comes to that meeting is necessarily going to be qualified for the Team Fairmont mini grant. However, what we want to do is empower people so that they learn how to apply for other fundings. So by having the community partners available and knowing what other things are out there, teaching them how to apply for that money, so that even if they're not one of the people that are chosen for the Team Fairmont mini grants, they still have the opportunity to apply for funding to complete their projects. And that's what really this is about, is to teach people and to empower people in the community, as well as bringing people together so that maybe, we have the same thing that we want to do, but somebody else is already doing it in the community, being able to link those people up so that they can have a volunteer opportunity or help that organization raise money. So it's not necessarily going to be just about them applying for Team Fairmont mini grants. It's more than that, which I think we learned in Cultivate was really important.
So then on September 3rd, the applications will be open. And then we just listed what's going to be required on the applications. So they will have to have 3 or more team members, 1 or more community partners, a description of the project and what community needs it will address, a detailed budget, a project timeline, and then also a sustainability plan.
So with this, you have to be a resident of the city of Fairmont, or a community or a business owner, or work in the city of Fairmont. You have to be connected. The project has to occur in the city of Fairmont. And we are going to limit so that the main person that's applying will not be an employee of the city of Fairmont or a council member or anything like that. They can volunteer, they can be part of the projects, but not be a main applicant. During Cultivate, that was allowed, but it wasn't done through the city of Fairmont. So it was done through the hub with HUD money. So we felt like we needed to limit that. But we do encourage people to volunteer.
In October, October 2nd, applications will be due, and then October 3rd through the 20th is when those applications will be evaluated by a review committee. This was one question that came up in our last presentation, what that committee would look like, and we have decided that it will consist of 2 city council members and 2 city staff members. And then we hope to then award the grants on the 21st of October. Good? Okay. And then finishing October 28th, we'll offer an orientation meeting. This meeting isn't mandatory, but we will encourage those who are awarded grants to attend, giving people the opportunity to answer, giving them the opportunity to ask questions. We'll offer any assistance and go over required paperwork, and then the projects can begin.
We'll talk about reimbursements and what documentation they need, basically everything that they're going to need to do to complete the grant.
And then in June, so we'll encourage them to do submissions for reimbursements throughout the project as they pay for things, but definitely we have to have all of that, those submitted by June 11th. And so all grant funding is provided through reimbursements, which is also one of the reasons we want them to have those community partners. So if they don't have the funding up front themselves, they can partner with people, and so the funding will be done through reimbursements, and then any changes to the project scope or budget must have written approval.
And they also have to put that in writing to us. And that's another teaching about doing grants, because anybody that's ever done grants knows that whenever you change your project in any way, change your budget, or need to do something different, you have to ask for that in writing and get approval before you actually do it. So trying to teach them as they do these grants, so that when they apply for other funding sources, that they're familiar with the types of things that they have to turn in, the types of paperwork they have to do, what reimbursements look like, and that type of thing.
And then we'll just finish with, again, some of the reasons or the benefits of this program. Provides cost-effective way to address neighborhood and community needs, supports resident-led and nonprofit projects that align with city goals and priorities. It leverages small investments for visibility, measurable community improvements, and it strengthens partnerships between the city, organizations, residents, and it increases community connectedness through volunteerism. Anything to add before we?
No, just questions.
Yep, any questions?
I just have a few. Thank you for this. Could you share with what would be an ideal project, like an example of what people could expect?
Yeah, I think one of the projects that's been real successful from the Cultivate program and ongoing was the community cleanup. So they purchased materials to provide those cleanups, and then they have partnered with community organizations, but also it's just an ongoing project. So that's one thing I think we hope to also achieve through these projects, are things that are ongoing.
Empowering those that are making a difference in our community on an ongoing basis. And the other question, if I'm a new person to grants, do you guys have the capacity or availability to help answer some of those questions? Because I've done research administration for a long time, and what might seem instinctual or something that's relative to me, do you guys have the bandwidth to help those people that want to do good things and don't understand what's an invoice, or how do I submit an invoice, or what happens if I submit it on June 12th?
Yes, I mean, I think we do, and that's why we want to make the workshop in the beginning mandatory, so that we're not, having people just kind of like filter in, and questions filter in, but try and address as many of those things up front as we can. So that's.
I'm just looking out for your time and talents and
Well,
bandwidth as well.
Yes, and then like Renee said, the other benefit of that mandatory meeting is if they're not selected for a team mini grant or Fairmont mini grant, then they have some resources to fall back to maybe apply for other grants that they come across.
Okay, thank you.
How similar is the application process to the Cultivate one? What I really liked about Cultivate, it was a low barrier of entry. You didn't have to have experience with grants. Even with hand-holding, sometimes a grant application is a lot, and especially when we're putting together like maybe a business or nonprofit and a bunch of community members who like they don't have years of audits to share and those kinds of things.
Yeah, these are a lot less complicated, I guess I would say, than even our outside agency funding and the opioid funding. These are meant to be beginner grants, baby grants, if you will, to learn how to do the grant process. So it's going to be very similar in that aspect of, a fill in the blank. Here's a box to put some, just a little bit of information in. And then, of course, if we need more detailed information as we move on, we can ask for it. But, a developed project. But past that, it is going to be a lot more simplified so that they do learn the process, but without having to have, the knowledge behind to apply for like something else with more money and that type of thing. But hopefully by doing this, that will empower them to be able to move on and feel like they can take on, other grants that are more complicated.
If those same entities were awarded Cultivate grants, would they still be eligible for a Team Fairmont mini grant if they were, I'll use cleanup as an example. Say they decided, hey, we want to add stream cleanup capabilities, so we want to do another grant for life jackets and kayaks or something. Would they be eligible, or is it one of those like, oh, you got to Cultivate, you're not eligible for this?
No, I don't think that we looked at that. I think it would be the group that's going to review the applications that would determine the merit of the project, not that, you got to Cultivate, so now you're no longer qualified. It's more, is it going to be in Fairmont versus, outside of Fairmont.
And if I can add to that, I think we also talked about like people through that review process, like the goal is, I think, keep Team Fairmont mini grants like continuing.
Right.
And was there discussion on like applicants after the first round?
Right, that's what I was going to add. So in subsequent years, if you had already been awarded a Team Fairmont mini grant, then I don't know, we're going to make it a requirement, but it would be the newer applicants that would have the
priority over the other ones, but that's once you have a Team Fairmont mini grant, not the Cultivate. I think we leave the Cultivate out of it as far as who's qualified, and go from here with our Team Fairmont mini grants.
Sounds good. Who is the team that picks which grants are awarded? What does that look like?
So I think the discussion that we had was the two council members and two city staff members. I think, the prerogative of the city council members would be you guys to ultimately, give us. And I don't recall, I know there was discussion that I had with you all, and I think you all were going to have with Kev, but the intention is a resolution that outlines that, correct? And then those names would be included in that resolution of appointing those folks. So, I think it would be getting feedback from you all. I know not everybody has all that time to spare. I don't imagine, I think there would be, how many meetings would you anticipate? Probably, Aaron and
I guess
Renee?
it depends on how many applications we receive, but
when you went through the Cultivate program, do you know how many although they were kind of doing the...
I think pretty much everybody that applied for a Cultivate mini grant got one.
It wasn't overload.
Right. So there were 24 projects that were originally awarded through Cultivate. They may have had a couple more that just didn't qualify, but
So would you anticipate like at max maybe 2 meetings if...
I would think we could probably.
Like, so,
yeah,
I mean, it
get
wouldn't
through.
be a huge time commitment on any of your part. And then I think I would recommend the 2 staff people. And I think from the 2 people you see in front of you are their name's not on a resolution, but would be the 2 people that I would recommend be part of that process. And again, they were both very instrumental, and like in particular, Aaron, in the program that we had prior. And they've both, Renee and Aaron, have both really extensively worked on this. And so they would be the 2 staff people. And then I think it would be up to, you guys. I mean, if I got more than 2 of you, then we'd have to figure out some process certainly we can provide an opportunity for, but I mean, if we're also sitting here now, if there's 2 of you that are interested in being a part of that, and you're not voting here, that I'd put those names on a resolution associated with, because I think we also talked about that resolution trying to spell out some of these component pieces that they've outlined as well in the presentation to you all. Do you have any thoughts, Kevin?
You might want to have an uneven number,
That was my recommendation as well.
so there can't be a tie.
And even
I-
think
I-
of maybe an alternate if there's some type of ethical conflict where someone would need to sit out. I think that would be important, because I think we ran into that with the opioid.
Some may have to
a
recuse
little bit.
themselves
Yeah,
on the council
just in case,
side.
then you have a replacement readily to bring on.
I'm assuming it would be kind of like the same
Okay.
process.
Did you have a thought, Councilmember Moran?
A community member.
We can add a 5th one.
My last thought was, I love to get the ball rolling on things. I'm a little worried September 2nd might be coming up real fast from someone who's kind of like, I've known these were coming. I've been looking forward to seeing it happen kind of thing. But if I'm someone out in the community, I had no idea, and I start hearing about this tomorrow, could I get my ducks in a row for a meeting on September 2nd? And I am not sure if I could.
Well, they don't really have to have their ducks in a row for the meeting. So it's just if you're interested, if you have an idea, if you want to volunteer but you don't have an idea, so everybody is welcome to that meeting. And then they'll have a month to plan out a project, or, at least plan out a project enough to put it on the application. So I think it's adequate time, but if you all feel strongly another way, we can look at that.
For the press release, like August 1st, anticipating?
Well, some of that will be defined around when the resolution is on City Council's agenda. So that the timing has an opportunity to shift on us associated with those dates, which in the discussions that we've had, the timing has shifted on us related to the development of these already. So, I mean, if the timing has to shift, it's not a deal breaker.
I would love to help,
Thank
however
you.
I can, so.
Great.
You're volunteering.
I am.
So there's one. Do I have another volunteer?
I will volunteer for the committee.
Okay, there's 2 volunteers.
Does anybody else want to volunteer?
I just had a couple questions.
Okay.
Just short questions. I was trying to think back to, and this is just kind of best practices or lessons learned from Cultivate. And I was trying to think back to that application. And I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, on that application, you had to have 3 community partners, like you listed the project lead and then 2 other project partners and the contact people for those partners, right? And then, so that kind of, it almost kind of had you have like 3 entities or 3 organizations together, kind of that model. Where this model is more 3 individuals linked with 1 kind of community agency. Is that what I'm seeing and hearing?
That is what we're proposing. I can't remember exactly what was on Cultivate, if it was 3 organizations. I think maybe you're right. I think maybe
I think it was. And again, I'm only going from, and in full disclosure, Disability Action Center, Marion County Transit,
Right.
Tigert Valley United Way, and then those project lead, and then those secondary partners, and the contact people for those partners were listed. So this kind of flips it a little bit to where now we've got 3 individuals, but maybe linked with a business or a community organization. When you had the Cultivates last last time around, did you have a lot of individual-led projects versus that kind of a 3 actual organizations working together?
I would say yes. The majority of them are more people.
Individuals. So my second question then is, just for me to understand, any issues with reimbursing people? And is that invoicing done similar to how an organization would invoice, or would the community partner / business organization do that invoicing for reimbursement?
I'm not sure.
Want me to answer?
Yeah.
So basically, it could be done either way. So depending on, the organization could 100%, pay for the item. So let's pretend we bought a bench. So the organization could buy the bench and then send in for reimbursement to the city with, the invoice, the receipt, proof of payment, and all of that. But if, you bought the bench for your project, you also could send that in, and then we just have to have a W-9 for you and put you in the city. So as long as we still have all of that proper documentation, we can do either way.
Yeah, I think that was not understanding how all the other projects did it. How were they successful? Was it an individual who then, like you said, did a W-9 and sent those things in?
Yeah, they absolutely.
So this is more of that model where individuals and less like organization-led.
I think as far as the cultivate, it was more individual. The partners are there really to support, and to provide resources, whether they're monetary resources or, the knowledge that they have, whatever it is, with the individuals. Because I think what we have found and what we encourage is, if people have an idea, people have lots of ideas, but sometimes those things are already happening in the community, and so we want to try and get them together, and to work on those things together. So I still feel like it's led by the individual, but those partners help them to complete their projects successfully.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Last opportunity for questions or discussion.
Madam Mayor, if I can, I just want
Yes.
to give a shout out to Aaron and Renee. I know that they've done a lot of legwork on this, and it has jumped back and forth in terms of when it was being put on work session agenda, because we were trying to tie it to a couple of items rather than just having a work session just on this issue. So I appreciate their flexibility and that time frame moving, but they've done a lot of work. I think the Cultivate program was really successful. I think there were really good projects that came out of that, and so I'm excited this opportunity for us to kind of continue that legwork, because I think that was the key thing that I think I remember even from that first presentation during the Cultivate program, was kind of like hearing from people go like, well, this sounds really great, but is it going to continue? Like, it's one thing if like you have a program 1 year and then it like dissipates, but it's keeping that involvement and that community involvement and people engaging in things. And I think that's where this came from, was wanting to answer that question, that like that first night at the firehouse was what we heard consistently was this going to continue after this first year, because it was a grant fund. And I think this opportunity and what these two women in front of us have put together, I think is a really good program, and I'm looking forward to seeing it continue and move forward. So I think my intention would be, Mayor and Council, that your next council meeting agenda, that we'll have a resolution on your agenda associated with the Team Fairmont mini grants.
Thank you. And the final item for our work session, the opioid ad hoc committee members. Who will be presenting on? Thank you, Ms. Graves.
Yes. So do I just need to? So we, based on council suggestion, decided to add some members to the ad hoc committee and substitute one out. So fire, we had Ryan Talbert, and due to some my words are gone. Unforeseen circumstances, he hasn't been able to attend. So Captain Lambert has graciously accepted to come on board and be part of the ad hoc committee. We also wanted to add someone from Marion County Rescue Squad as well as the quick response team. So from the Marion County Rescue Squad, Stephanie Vandetta, and then from quick response team, Raven Berkey.
So our intention would be an amended resolution, because of course we provide those and council take action on those names, an amended resolution on your next agenda. I don't think anything prescribes that number can't grow as well. I think that, what we heard was trying to get folks from the recovery side, and in particular, I think Raven and her group are doing a lot of good work in that. And then, of course, I think the Rescue Squad is another partner. Very, very, I think would add a level to that. And I think making sure that we get someone there from the fire department. I think that, as we all know, there were some growing pains at first, and I was very frank with all of you. A lot of growing pains that are my responsibility, nobody else's. But I think now the committee process, I've sat in several of those as kind of the ex officio member chairing those, and see the robust work that's happening. So I think adding those additional community folks will be really beneficial, because in particular, taking nothing away from our city attorney or other folks that are in that room, but our one community member that's on there currently, has been doing a tremendous job in his feedback. And so hearing the feedback on applications. So now we've gotten into that process where those applications are moving. You guys saw that, but we even remarked, Renee and myself, how quickly we got the Fairmont Morgantown Housing Authority application moving. And it's because we had the opportunity to go through that first phase, and again, some growing pains, but then also when we got the initial applications out, took us a little bit longer once those were approved, getting all of that paperwork together that was reviewed by legal counsel. But now that we have that template in place, that got moving expediently for the Fairmont Morgantown Housing Authority. So I think that'll just continue. And so it would be my recommendation that I'd put a amended resolution in front of you all at your next meeting with those additional names associated with it. But happy to answer any other questions associated with it.
Just procedurally, should the rescue squad or the QRT or the fire department or anyone who's sitting on that committee's agency apply for funds? How does that work as far as evaluating in the future? Do they just recuse themselves from that?
I think, because we went through this discussion over the fact that whether it was Fairmont fire personnel or Fairmont police personnel in particular, I use that's a great example of using them as an applicant, and that they scored. Because ultimately the final determinative body, which is why we've been so reluctant to, because I know we've had discussions, why I've been reluctant to put a council representative on there, because ultimately you all are going to be making the final say so. That committee can score that scoring rubric, and it's all based off that rubric. If that score ultimately comes out and it meets that minimum threshold that's been adopted, and it comes it's recommended to you all, it is just that, a recommendation. You all have the ability to reject that and say, no, you scored it, we like the application. But I think that's the general premise that we've taken. Kevin, do you have anything else in particular?
I think a lot of it would be whether that person stood to personally gain from the situation that they were voting on versus their entity. So if the rescue squad made application for an opioid grant and the rescue squad as a whole stood to gain versus, individual salaries or... Kevin, will you hit your microphone, please? Do you want me to start over?
Yes.
Okay, my position would be that if the individual himself or herself did not stand to gain, then it may not be a conflict. It would be if their entity stood to gain and they did not stand to personally gain, I don't think there would be a conflict. It wouldn't be any different than a member of council voting on the overall budget because they sat on a board or commission of another group that was going to be funded or get a outside agency grant. I think it would be substantially similar, and that's what the ethics opinion that we've reviewed for purposes of council says, is that basically if you don't stand to personally gain from your vote, then you really don't have to recuse yourself. So I think they would be able to, vote on something like a piece of equipment. Let's say the rescue squad wanted to buy Narcan. I don't. That individual wouldn't be gaining, or whatever.
Yeah.
No, that's an important distinction. That
Yeah.
helped me. And the whole, like, they're not making a decision, they're making a recommendation.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want either of the new entities or our police and fire to feel like they could not continue to apply for
Well,
these funds.
and to your point, I mean, those are agencies, again, why I think Renee went to them as like a, hey, do you have someone who would be interested in serving? In particular, I think Raven being I think she will bring a really good benefit to the rubric discussion and to the evaluation of those applicants. But it's just that the QRT team is a really effective team in Marion County, and we don't want them precluded from being able to participate in that process. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, we had the discussion too when the police and fire made application through the first round, that the guys from the fire department and the police officer was not precluded from voting because neither one of them stood to personally gain from either one of the applications. And I remember it. There were others in the community that attempted to make it a big deal, but really, in fact, the Ethics Commission had already decided a similar situation, and it was fine.
Thanks. I also wanted to say that I really have appreciated the notes from the committee. Some of those applications are really, really lengthy and in-depth, and as a council person, I don't always know what I'm looking for, and I see the rubric and who scored what, and then those notes help me connect all the dots, so those have been really, really helpful.
Great.
I just want to add, working alongside of all three of those members you were bringing on, Stephanie, Dusty, and of course Raven. I work on the QR team with them. They are going to be a fabulous people to work with for you guys. So really happy, especially for Raven, to be on that board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to have a motion and a second to adjourn our work session this evening.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please respond with aye. Aye. Those opposed, as hearing none, we are adjourned until our regular meeting starting at 7 p.m.